Hey, welcome Aditya to the AWS OnAir. How are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you guys? And just like Jasmine, I'm also based out of very, very cold Dallas, Texas, where it's sub-freezing, just 31 degrees.
Yeah.
What's
Right.
freezing for you guys, right? Like that's warm. I would love 31 degrees. So
31 degrees is not warm anywhere, Jeff.
Not at all. So, yeah, let's see. We are talking about Amazon Aurora today, right?
Yes, we're talking about Amazon Aurora, and we're going to talk specifically about Amazon Aurora global databases.
Okay.
Hope you guys are excited. It's about multi-region deployments and all that kind of cool stuff.
Yeah. I think that for some of the folks, you're going to have to say what that is. I think we know, but our audience might need to come up to speed. They might have just heard about Aurora, but what's global databases? Tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, absolutely. So Amazon Aurora, first and foremost, is our flagship database. It's our flagship relational database. It comes in two open source flavors, if you will, right? MySQL and Postgres. So one of the things when we built Amazon Aurora was everybody wanted the relational database. They wanted it to scale within the region. But a fun fact about Amazon Aurora is that we recently celebrated 10-year anniversary. So it's been out there for a decade, actually more than a decade. And throughout this decade, we have done a ton of innovation. And one of that innovation is this global databases, right? So we have use cases for customers. Like they want to use a relational database, but they also want to be multi-region.
Good.
And then some customers want it for cross-region database recovery. Some customers want it to just be available in another region so that they can do fast reads. There are some use cases where you just want to migrate database from one region to another. And we have some cool use cases that we see all the time, like follow the sun models, right? Like some customers, their customers are in the US, so they stay in the US for that time. And then once the sun moves to another continent, we can just do a switch over to that continent. And the database basically just keeps following each continent that way, keeps following the sun, if you will. And it's just fast reads, fast writes, and all sorts of recovery capabilities. It's fantastic.
well, yeah, and from experience, I've been involved in some large companies who have whole teams and whole strategies around how the databases act. And it's one thing to have a feature for whatever you're using and say, oh, you can fail over. It's highly available. But then it's digging into the details on what happens, how that happens, and then, we could talk about the database, but the application is the thing using the databases and the users are using the application. So how does that affect everyone down the line? And so I see improvements in Aurora, the global database. Like, tell us about what's been improved and how things are easier for customers.
Oh yes, you're hitting on the meat of the show today. So we want to talk about Aurora Global Database. So if we can throw up my screen here, let me just kind of walk you folks through what we have. All right, waiting for the screen share to come up.
It's coming,
Drum
screen
roll.
share.
A drum roll. It's coming, we hope, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I
So,
think,
go ahead.
I think you might have to reshare it.
Oh, of course I do. Technical difficulties.
Yeah, we're live, folks. So, I mean,
Yeah.
this isn't prepared, but good stuff.
All right.
Air in the chat accusing Nick of
There it
being a
is.
bot. And then we have Evans Boa watching from New Jersey. So hello.
Excellent. All right. So without spending any more time, I'm going to do a very high level overview of a global database. Like this is 1,000 feet overview. We're not going to go too much detail into the nitty gritties, but as you can see, you have a primary region and a secondary region. Now I'm just showing this for simplicity. You can have many more, like up to 5 secondary regions. Each secondary region can have 15 read replicas. The primary region can have 15 read replicas, which means that the read scale that Aurora Global Database can achieve is massive, right? We're talking about 90 read replicas across 6 regions. This is fantastic. Our customers love it.
Let me interrupt really quick. I think
Yeah.
most people who have seen a diagram like this in regards to whether it be RDS or Aurora, usually we see this and we kind of just assume the green boxes what we've normally seen has been different availability zones. I just want to point out to the viewers that these are different regions.
These are different regions. Absolutely. Yeah. So, primary region, secondary region. So maybe you have one region, US East, another region could be in Asia, it could be in Europe, wherever, right? So this is what global database looks like. You have a primary region, you're talking to that primary region, you can read and write from that primary region. But we use our proprietary physical level replication to take that data and replicate it with low lag. We're talking usually in single digit seconds or sometimes even hundreds of milliseconds, right? So the lag is really, really low. And we replicate it out to these secondary regions. Now, let's kind of look at how we talk to these databases. So at any given point, this is a relational database after all, right? So we are not spreading writes across, there's just a single writer. So the active writer is always going to be in the primary cluster, okay? So this is important so that we can kind of explore on top of this. So now global database actually supports two primary features. There is a switchover and you can do a failover. Switchover is sometimes also kind of you can think of it as planned failover. So you're planning for some sort of an event like the one we talked about before, the follow the sun model, right? So you can switch over, and this is what happens when you do a switchover. Essentially, the primary and secondary clusters are going to swap roles, and the direction of replication is going to get swapped. Although one additional thing happens, the active and inactive writer endpoints also swap. So now the application that was connected to the active endpoints now suddenly finds itself connected to an inactive writer endpoint. So what's going to happen is you keep retrying after a switchover or a failover. This applies to failover also. I'm just for the simplicity's sake, I'm just showing switchover here. And then eventually the connection gets reestablished. But guess what? Now you're connected to the secondary, hence you can only do reads. You can no longer do writes. So now what you have to do is someone actually has to go in and change that endpoint to the active end first. First of all, if there's some sort of downtime, some sort of catastrophe going on, right? Like this is error prone. This is kind of brittle experience, right? So this is a big problem that customers wanted us to fix. Like customers have been asking about global database. This is great. Can you do something about the endpoints? So we did. And that's what the focus of today is. That's our Aurora global writer endpoint, right? So this is what the writer endpoint kind of looks like. And we'll look at a nice little demo, but I just wanted to go over the concept first. So now, again, you have an active endpoint and you have an inactive writer endpoint, right? So let's kind of do the same thing again.
Sure.
We do switch over. The primary becomes secondary, roles flip. But the cool thing that happens now is that the active and inactive writer endpoints do switch, but the global endpoint, the global writer endpoint, actually does not change. So the application that was talking to the global writer endpoint sees no difference. It just keeps retrying, and within a few seconds, it's going to get connected to the primary cluster. It's going to be able to start doing writes, and the application developers don't have to do any change. No changes. They just have to keep retrying their connection. That's it. And now you're connected to the appropriate endpoint. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of times developers and companies will they think this is how it's going to work. So let's develop code specifically for this.
Yes.
But we all know that always doesn't exactly happen, and something else can come up. And for some weird reason, it didn't work with how the application was programmed. Sounds like this is just taking away some responsibility for the failover from the application.
Absolutely. And Jeff, I'm gonna tell you, I'm old enough to actually live through the data centers, right, where we used to install databases. And in those times, if you actually wanted to create any sort of global database topology, you had to actually start negotiating. You had to start with negotiating contracts in another region, right? In another country. Let's get a data center. Think about, coming up, what sort of rack space do I need? Here, you create a global database in minutes. You just go to a console, click a few buttons, boom, you have a global database. So,
well, I think that the other side of that is, I know there are companies, you talked about the latency earlier. people build data centers within latency boundaries, specifically like, okay, as far away as possible within the amount of latency, so we can have that synchronization. And this sounds like this. Not only, I mean, the endpoint doesn't solve that, but global database solves that. So those two together, making things a lot easier for customers.
They do, and the infrastructure that we built, the engineering that we put into this, it's all obfuscated from you. You don't see any of those components. There's literally like huge machinery that's working behind the scenes. There's like fleets of instances in all of these regions. All they do is their job is to replicate with lowest, most efficiently, so that it scales and gives you the lowest latency. So this is quite an engineering feat. We have had it for several years now. It's a very, very popular, beautiful feature. Customers love it. It's beautiful. All right. So
you said we could see this in action. Do we have a little bit of a demo?
Absolutely. Well, so I'm gonna go ahead.
I was going to say, while he's setting that up, we have a little trivia question. Aditya mentioned this, but we'd like for the viewers to type in a comment to answer the question: what is the maximum number of reader instances that Aurora Global Database can support? Is it 5, 90, or 25? So we'll check in after the demo and we'll see what everyone thinks.
All right, cool. So now, we have limited screen space. So I'm trying to fit everything on the screen. So on the left-hand side here, we have our console window where we do all of our work. Our databases live here. Our instances live here. And on the right-hand side, I'm simulating an application, right? And I'm simulating an application that is connecting from 2 different regions. So we have US East 2 and we have US East 1, right? Now, the picture that I was showing you before, this is what it looks in real life, right? This is that cluster. And I'm sorry, I keep looking over there because that's my second screen where all the demos are happening.
All good.
So we have a global database, as you can see, right? So this is our global database cluster. This global database cluster has 2 regional clusters in it. We have one in US East 1 and then another one in US East 2. So these 2 regions. Now these could be US East 1 and it could be like EU West 1. So the regions don't matter. Any regions can be paired, okay? So now we have these 2 regions and you can see clearly that we have a primary cluster and a secondary cluster, right? So these roles are now primary cluster and secondary cluster. So what I'm going to do is I have written a script. I'm going to use that script and we're going to do this live, by the way. Hopefully all of this works. So this script, basically, all it does is it's going to connect to the endpoint that we give it, and it's going to make a few queries, and it's going to keep doing a heartbeat. So let's get our, we're going to use 2 endpoints. So from one window, we'll use the global endpoint, and from another window, we will use the regional endpoint. So here's my local endpoint right here. I'm just copying it, and then I'm going to paste it in. All right, here we go. So it's just doing a little bit of heartbeat check. Now I'm going to run the exact same script from this other window. And here we will use the global endpoint, okay? So let's go ahead and use our global endpoint. All right, so if you can see, both of these endpoints are connected to the same IP, right? 20 dot something. They both have the same role. They're both writer, and this is kind of getting cut off, but maybe let me try to extend it a little bit. Okay, not a good idea to do live, but so this endpoint is local, the other endpoint is global. Hopefully that you can kind of see that, right?
See the LO and the GL, so I trust.
Right. Okay, so local and global. So now here we're actually going to do the switchover again live. So look at this. This is so simple, right? I go to Actions, I click on Switchover, go to Switchover, and then select the region that I want to switch over to, and then I click on Confirm. Boom. That's it. That's all I do. Now you would see that a window pops up. It's going to actually walk us through multiple steps of switchover. And you're going to see that both of these applications, right, the simulation of application, they're going to lose the connection. And we're going to see how they reconnect and what kind of effect this switchover has. So now you can already see that both of them have lost connection, right? Then neither of them can connect. But what they're doing is they are constantly, like every few seconds, they're just trying to establish that connection. So the switcher is going on, you can see that it's going through multiple steps. So the switchover goes through, first of all, it has to pause all the writes on the primary, right? So it pauses, that's step one. Then it makes sure that all of the data is replicated over to the secondary. That's step two. Then step three is it's going to promote that secondary, and it's going to reverse the replication. So it's essentially going through those multiple stages. So now very soon, this usually takes 50 to 60 seconds, and then sometimes it may go up to like 3 minutes. So we'll see. And just in case if this doesn't work, I have actually a video recorded too, so we might have to switch. Oh, there it goes. Never mind.
That's cool. So what is a developer doing while they're waiting for this to happen? You know, if you say
panicking.
It takes 3 minutes, they could go get coffee, they could find something else, you know, catch up with the team.
Yeah. I mean, the good thing about this is that the logic is already built into the application, right? So the application developer, in all honesty, like they're not doing anything. They're sleeping, right? If this happens in the middle of the night, they're just sleeping. There's no pager going on. Life is good, right? So if you see here,
using the global endpoint.
The global endpoint is already connected. It's already connected. If you see that it actually switched the IP, right? The IP was 20 dot something, which was on the old region. Now it has switched to the other IP. And this happened, let's see, it happened in 55 seconds. Within 55 seconds, the switchover completed. You didn't have to do anything. The application just reconnected. Now it can start writing, it can start reading, all that kind of good stuff.
And we didn't have to change anything on the application or the script that you're running. It automatically did it.
Yeah. Nothing at all. We didn't change anything at all, and it just kept working. Now you see that on the other side, we came back as well. But there is a big difference. Can you spot the difference?
Folks,
what is it?
Folks watching, what do you see that's different? Go ahead and put it in the comments.
Okay. Well, let's see if we can get in comments. What is your guess, folks? Jasmine, Jeff, what do you think is different here?
Jasmine, I'll let you try.
Well, I'm just laughing at the chat because they said they still get paged.
Oh, yes. Twice. A bunch of people got it. Mr. Bob got it right.
Yeah.
Banderson got it right.
Yeah.
Oh, someone says they get paged twice. Sorry to hear that. But if you can see, and I tried to use my color coding techniques here, but even though the local endpoint reconnected as a reader, right? And let's see here. If you look at these regions, they have switched their roles. So now they're reconnected, but they're reconnected as regions. So Jasmine, to answer your question, developers in US East 2 are freaking out right now because they can't write. They can only read, and all of their write queries are failing. But developers in US East 1 who used global endpoints are really happy because they didn't have to get up, they didn't get paged or nothing. It just works. It's magic, right?
The question that I've always received when talking about any sort of failovers, obviously, how long does it take? And we just showed you claimed it was 60, and you just showed it was like actually 55. So generally, I think we say, 60 seconds. Is there anything that makes that longer or shorter? You talked about the steps that it goes through in the failover. Is it always going to be that by the nature of how the global endpoint is, or are there factors that can play a role in that time?
There are some factors. One of those factors is how much data needs to be recovered in the secondary region, right? So that's one factor. The other factor is DNS, right? So DNS is a big kind of a variable here. So we are pretty much short-circuiting everything here, right? So I'm within those regions. I'm actually very frantically doing DNS refreshes in this script in the backend that you don't see. Gotcha. So everything is working fine. But usually what happens is that there's multiple like DNS devices in that path of network. So it's potentially, until that DNS gets completely resolved and reconnected to the new one, it may appear to the application or to the people who are trying to connect that you're still failing over. Gotcha. But what we've done is within the last few years, we have gotten down the failover time and switchover time significantly down. It used to take 5 to 6 minutes. Now it's already down to, you saw it, right? It took like 1 minute. And we continue to tune it, so it's even going to continue to go down as the time progresses.
Yeah.
Now, I did want to show you what the developers who use local endpoint would have to do, right? So first of all, they're going to have to stop their application, right? I did Control C, that's very easy, but in real life, these people, they're going to have to go and, go to their application servers. Who knows, maybe it's a farm of application server. Now they have to go figure out, where is my primary cluster? Okay, here's my primary cluster. Now I go in and figure out, where is that writer endpoint? Keep in mind, this is catastrophic going on. People can't connect. You're losing money. So you're trying to figure out, okay, that's my writer endpoint. I copied that. And then I go in here. And then I look, I mean, even right now, I'm just fidgeting, right? Then I put this in. All right. Now we got connected. So you essentially had to swap that endpoint. You had to make sure. But can you imagine, like, so many things can go wrong? Can you imagine if some person actually goes in here and puts the wrong database in here? So you can actually start writing to a wrong database, right? So this is error prone. This was error prone. It's now fixed, thankfully, and life is good. So hopefully this makes sense. That's kind of the end of the demo.
Yeah.
But our customers love this new feature. Global endpoints is very, very popular. Global databases, very popular, and just continue to keep making it better.
Yeah. Aditya, what does it look like to get started?
Get started on global database?
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's so easy. Like, you would not believe how easy it is, because if you have a regular Aurora cluster, you literally, actually, let me show you, right? So I'm assuming this is a global cluster. All you do is go to actions, and then you click on add a region. There should be add region somewhere in here. Obviously, I can't find it right now. But hold on. So you just add AWS region, and then you add a region. That's all there is to it. And maybe it's a CLI command, maybe it's an API call, but it takes minutes to get started on this.
Great.
Nice.
Well, let's go back to our trivia question. What is the maximum number of reader instances that Aurora Global Database can support? 5, 90, or 25? And Jib Jab, 90, Mr. Bob, 25. Aditya, what's the correct answer?
90 is the correct answer, because you can have 6 regions, and then each region can have multiple reader endpoints up to 15.
That's great.
I may be doing math wrong, but it's definitely not 25.
Awesome, Aditya. Well, I enjoyed that demo. We'll drop some links here in the chat about how folks can go and read the blog post and learn more and get started with using this new feature. But great job, and thanks for having it. Well,
Thank you so much
on the show.